The Oklahoma City Thunder's playoff picture is finally set. How far can they go this postseason?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member and lead beat writer for InsideTheThunder.com, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, the Oklahoma City Thunder get their first round matchup set against the New Orleans Pelicans. Who wins and how many games, plus storylines to watch, and how far will the Thunder go? It's been a great week of previewing Into the Abyss for a little bit because we weren't really sure who exactly would be the opponent. We had a plethora of guests on that I'm glad you all have enjoyed. Go back and listen to those. A lot of those conversations were just centered around the postseason at large, but now we can dive into an actual opponent. So the Pelicans win the play-in tournament for the right to be the 8th seed. The Thunder are 2-1 against New Orleans this year. The two teams matched up in the play-in last year. The Thunder won on the road. Zion is sidelined for 2 weeks with a hamstring injury. I think that puts him the earliest back, game 5. And Brandon Ingram has admitted that the Thunder have had their number these last few seasons. When you look at this series, I think that the Thunder should have the distinct advantage. We're going to talk about storylines to watch. But it's also important to talk about how the Thunder, you look at this team and you always point out how inexperienced they are and the lack of size. And the fact that a young team's never, done great, right? But you cannot pick and choose which NBA history to look at, because that's the only thing you're doing there with inexperience is looking at history, not this Thunder team. This Thunder team has continued to buck trends, continued to outperform expectations, and continue to do uncommon things that we haven't seen before. NBA history also tells us you need a really good defense, you need to shoot the ball very well, and you need a star to go far in the playoffs. Check, check, check for the Thunder. So I think that with the Pelicans, you're looking at a team, good win for them on Friday, a resilient win for them on Friday against Sacramento, where you lose to the Lakers, and then you come into this game against the Kings banged up, and the Kings look great against the Warriors, and a lot of people pick the Kings. Great job by the Pelicans to win the game, but I think that this is where the road ends for the 8th seed, a very good 8th seed. And we talked all year long in the preseason about how tough this Western Conference would be. It delivered on that promise, and the Thunder won 57 games. You cannot do that by accident. You don't luck into 57 games. You don't sneak up on teams for 57 wins. They are that good. And so we're going to get into how many games it'll take the Thunder to win this series, and then how far can they get past this series coming up. But let's start with what storylines, what keys does this series have to offer for Oklahoma City and for New Orleans. The number one storyline that you need to look for is SGA as the number one option. I think that you can look at him as one of the best and most efficient scorers in the NBA and continue that trend in this series and continue that trend in the postseason. But, you have to just see it. You have to see one go in for the playoff run. This is his first time in the postseason at the top of NBA scouting reports. The first time, in the postseason, as the guy go-to option. And last year, he handled it very well, scoring 31 points in the play-in against these very Pelicans. Now, his numbers have dipped a tad against New Orleans. And Herb Jones is the best defender to put on SGA. But that's like being the world's biggest ant, right? It's going to be SGA to take over the series and take over this postseason. I think that you're going to enjoy what number one option Shai looks like. We have no evidence to suggest that he will not rise to the occasion in a big game. If anything, his production might increase with the amount of minutes increase that you would expect a star player like Shai to get in the postseason, as you see every single year. I think the biggest storyline for this series is actually Chet Holmgren with rest. Chet Holmgren with rest has been an all-star caliber player. So he starts the year. Look at his November month, right? Because you only play a little bit in October. So look at his November month. After an off season, time off, he starts out averaging 18 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 27 blocks in the month, 13 steals, all in 14 games. He was excellent to start the season in October, November, December. Now look at his splits. When there's 3+ days of rest, he's averaging 16 points, 9 rebounds, and 1.8 assists per game. When there's 2 days off of rest, which will happen a lot in the postseason, happens a lot in this specific series, and happened 11 times this year, with 2 days off, Chet Holmgren is averaging 19 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. And then the most critical one. In the 6 games following the All-Star break, Chet Holmgren posted 21 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 blocks per game, shooting 61% from the floor, 43% from 3, and 87% at the charity stripe, lifting Oklahoma City to a 5-1 record in that span. The Thunder have 6 days off this week leading into game 1, 2 days off between nearly each game, and I think that you will see Chet Holmgren make a massive difference. And throughout the postseason, you're never going to have less than a day off between games, and mostly going to have 2 days off between contests, especially this first round as you try to stretch it out at the NBA level, because you only want to put on 3 games during the weekdays, and that, of course, leads to some more spread out games. With Josh Giddey, he's another storyline. It's this Josh Giddey hot streak that's twofold. One, against New Orleans. Can he continue to punish the New Orleans Pelicans? He loves playing in Madison Square Garden. He loves playing in New Orleans. But since March 1st, it's been more than a hot streak. It's been a sustained period where Josh Giddey's been a really, really good player. And as we've said since March 1st, it's all been very sustainable and repeatable aspects of his game. So I believe Josh Giddey will have a good series, but here's what he's done since March 1st. He's averaging 15 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 1.2 stocks per game, steals plus blocks. That includes 54% from the floor and 37% from beyond the arc. In that stretch, Josh Giddey is shooting 69% at the rim. Very nice number from him. 40% on non-corner threes and 50% in the mid-range. If he can knock down his shots from beyond the arc, if he can get to the rim and continue to use his body at the rim as he has since March 1st, he will make a massive difference in this series. But defensively is the bigger key as well, because while those offensive numbers from March 1st are great, since March 1st, you've also seen him routinely locked in defensively. Josh Giddey's never going to be an elite point of attack defender, but what he can be is an elite defensive player within the Thunder scheme. With his size, he can go get deflections, which leads to steals, which leads to fast break points, which leads to the Thunder getting out and running where they're at their best. With his size, he can go get rebounds and in possessions and then have the ball in his hands to turn the court the other way. Those are massive, massive things. Last year against New Orleans, in the play-in, Josh Giddey put up 31 points, 9 rebounds, 10 assists, 50% from the floor, in a massive play-in win over New Orleans. He's done that in New Orleans this season in their last meeting. Josh Giddey's been a massive part of what the Thunder are doing, and the Thunder's key to success over the last few weeks. And so if you're going to get a Josh Giddey stretch like this in the playoffs, along with the things that feel more certain, the Thunder are going to be a very, very, very tough out. And I think that there's not a ton of reason to believe that Josh Giddey will revert back to his early season woes, because the only real variance that can happen is the three-point shots not going down. But if you really dig deep into his stretch since March 1st, there have not been these overwhelmingly crazy three-point games. There was a wild three-point game in Milwaukee. There was a wild three-point game in New Orleans. But other than that, it's been really predicated on the fact that he can score inside the arc, as we predicted back in FIBA in August. So I think that Josh Giddey is a big storyline to watch. And perhaps the biggest storyline for the Pelicans is going to be Trey Murphy III. Because as a number 8 seed trying to pull off an upset, or really as any lower seed trying to pull off an upset, you need to get hot from 3. Trey Murphy III has shot 38% from 3. He has 11 games of hitting 5 or more threes in a game, including one 10 3-pointer game. He had 21 points in last year's play-in. Shot variance with the Pelicans getting on fire from 3 and getting hot from beyond the arc with their defense. Like, they can play some really hard-nosed defense. They can limit scoring. They have the length. They have the size to do that on that end of the floor. If they can play fantastic defense and get a massive Trey Murphy 5+ 3-pointer game, they're going to likely win that contest. How many of those games do you get in a series? Because you got to win 4. It's a race to 4 and a best of 7. So do you get 2 hot Trey Murphy nights? And do you capitalize on them? But that's what it's going to take. This is going to be, in every sense of the word, an upset. I know that we like to dance around the Thunder and dance around their expectations and dance around what they're supposed to be. This is who they are. They have hit every check mark you can possibly hit. They've hit the top 5 offense, top 5 defense. They've won 40 games before 20 losses. They're the number 1 seed in the West. They won 57 games in the toughest conference we've ever seen. They've handled business against top-tier teams. Like, they've hit every mark you can hit. This would take a sizable upset to beat the Thunder in the first round. And it's going to take a guy like Trey Murphy being fantastic. So I wonder how many of those games you get in a series, especially against the Thunder, who at times can lapse and give up corner threes, and purposefully give up corner threes as well. But those are some big storylines. We have some more storylines, plus how far this Thunder team will get in the playoffs, all coming up. But first, I want to say right now, I'm going to go to friends over at Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure is just around the corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to get your adventure to the next level, including the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's a perfect vehicle for city drivers who like a great escape. It has the classic built-in Google Assistant that's always there for you to help you out making calls and anything else that you need. With a 12.3-inch HD touchscreen information display, the Nissan Rogue is awesome as a midsize crossover for your next adventure. Check out the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder with room up to 8 in the expansive cargo capacity. It's the advanced available 4x4 capacity. Check it out today with 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing. Go there right now to the Nissan Pathfinder. Check out the Nissan Rogue or Pathfinder and find your next big adventure at shop nissanusa.com. That's shop nissanusa.com, nissanusa.com. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Another storyline to watch. Valen Chunis, can the Thunder keep playing him off the floor? Because people look at Valen Chunis and think, oh, this is going to be great because the Thunder don't have size. It's a multi-layer conversation. Number one, let's say Valen Chunis turns back the clock and looks fantastic, right? And looks good. Okay, do you want to center your offense around dumping the ball inside and letting Valen Chunis cook as he did in the first half of the play-in last year, and it still was not good enough? It still got him play off the floor? No, you can't play that way. The Thunder would love you to play that way. It's as though you're bunting in baseball every single time. Thank you. Pick the ball up, throw it to first. They're just giving you an out. They're just handing it to you. Go ahead and dump the ball to Valen Chunis 25 times on Sunday. Go ahead. Have fun. Chet will block a few of them. He'll miss a couple bunnies. And the ones he does convert, it's 2 points, and it leaves away the threat of CJ coming off of screen, hitting a 3, of Trey Murphy with a relocation 3, of Brandon Ingram just absolutely getting his way. Go ahead. Have at it. The Thunder will knock down threes. The Thunder will get out and run. And they'd love for you to limit your offense that way. But in all likelihood, Valanciunas is not going to turn back the clock. He's not going to play great. He's not going to be the focal point of the offense. And so at that point, what does he do? He clogs the lane, keeps Chet at the rim. Offensively, if Josh Giddey's punishing you off ball the way that he has, throughout this last stretch, including against Valanciunas, That immediately plays Valanciunas off the floor, as it did last year in the play-in whenever Jay Will was the center, right? But even without Josh Giddey, independent of what he's doing, Valanciunas cannot guard Chet Holmgren. Just cannot do it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So it's another disadvantage for New Orleans. Willie Green has shown you he will quickly dip out on Valanciunas. He averages 10 fewer minutes per game against Oklahoma City than any other team. And I think that Larry Nance Jr. is the better option. It worked against Sacramento when they went small with him on Friday. But then that takes away some of your depth. So one of these advantages you cannot keep on the floor if you're New Orleans. CJ McCollum's another guy who has the pedigree, who's been to the postseason, who can make big shots. Liability defensively. In the playoffs, it becomes a honey mismatch game, and you have a trio of guys who can create mismatches. And a lot of play finishers who can benefit off of it. You have SGA who can hit every tough shot in the book. You have Jalen Williams who's almost a carbon copy. And you have Chet Holmgren who can score at all three levels and facilitate in his own way mismatches by putting you in pick and roll, pick and pop, forcing switches. And that's two guys who have a ton of size. CJ's going to have to guard one of them. After you do all these pick and roll charades, it'll end up with CJ on one of those guys, J-Dub or Shai or Chet. And you're either going to have to overreact and over-rotate and leave someone open who can finish the play, or live with that massive disadvantage, or not play CJ McCollum, one of your best offensive choices as history shows it. Another advantage for the Thunder. Then you look at Brandon Ingram. And I think that this is going to be what swings the series in terms of how many games it goes. Because Brandon Ingram's legit awesome. He is legit a fantastic player. And, while the Pelicans did have to play in the play-in tournament and did have to play on Tuesday and have to play on Friday, and they'll have to fly to Oklahoma City and not practice on Saturday and then play on Sunday. Well, all those things are true, right? Brandon Ingram is still coming off of an injury and ends up, scoring 24 points on 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and a block against Sacramento. He's also going to get the benefit of 2 days off between games 1 and 2, 2 days off between games 2 and 3, a day off between games 3 and 4, 2 days off between games 4 and 5, and so on and so forth. He's going to get the benefit of that to shake off the rust. He looked much better Friday than he did on Tuesday. I suspect he'll look the same or better on Sunday than he did on Friday, and so on and so forth. So how much better can Ingram get as the season goes on, as the series goes on, as he knocks some of that rust off? That can swing things for New Orleans. If you're Oklahoma City, a big storyline will be Lou Dort playing in big games. A 30-point night in Game 7 as a rookie in the bubble against Houston. Awesome in the play-in last year. And Mark put it simply, he's at his best when the stakes are higher. In games where you seriously need to buckle down and go win, he shows up with the best of them. In games where this doesn't really matter, there's no real stakes attached to it, he can get a little bit loosey-goosey. He can get inefficient. He can stray from the game plan. This year, he's taken a massive leap in efficiency. You've had to pick your poison on who to guard. And he's knocked down corner threes, and he's going to get a lot of those open looks. A lot of those open looks in this series. The last storyline, before we go into who wins and in how many games in round one, the last storyline is Mark and the rotations. He mentioned if they practice on Thursday, he's not in the business of cutting guys out just for the sake of cutting guys out. But I feel like a lot of people just stopped reading after that point. The caveat was he understands that the playoffs are a different animal. You go from an 82-game marathon to this 7-game sprint where you're trying to win 4 out of 7. And with that being said, it reading between the lines feels like you're going to see Mark blend the two of conventional wisdom of shortening your rotation with dancing with the girl that brought you to the dance of being unconventional. So how does that blend shake out? How does it look throughout the series, throughout the postseason, really, for Mark? So who wins and in how many games? As I said before, you cannot just pick and choose which history matters and which history you look at. We cannot say that the 82-game body of work matters, and it matters being a top 5 offense, top 5 defense. It matters winning 57 games. It matters navigating the toughest Western Conference we've ever seen. It matters winning 40 games before 20 losses. We cannot say that all that throughout the course of NBA history has mattered, right? And look back at these great teams who have done those things and say, well, duh, they were great, and then say it does not matter for the Thunder. We cannot say that this league is all about stars, but yet ignore that the Thunder have one of the brightest stars in the NBA in SGA and have one of the best shot makers in the NBA in Jalen Williams. And yes, he is one of the best shot makers in the NBA, even as a sophomore player. We cannot say that coaching matters and adjustments matter in the NBA, then not give credit to one of the best coaches in the league and not credit him as a weapon. We cannot give credit to you can't win rings without defense and you need shooting. It's the currency of basketball. And then when the Thunder are great at both those things, just ignore it because, well, they're too young. The Thunder have multiple go-to scorers who you trust to go get a bucket down the stretch. They have an adaptive roster who can play many styles. They have a body of work of success. They have the shooting requirements. They have the athleticism required, the defense required, and they have what it takes to go win playoff series. No young team's ever done this. Very few of them have. Very few young teams have been as good as the Thunder are. That's not a great reason. If that's the only reason you can draw, you need to pick up the pen again. Because there's a whole lot more NBA history that's actually on the side of the Thunder than there is that there's not on the side of the Thunder. So the Thunder are going to win this series. And people are going to be nervous leading up to the first game. National media who's watched the Thunder play 3 times this year is going to pick against the Thunder because of those two glaring things of rebounding and inexperience without looking at the advantages that a lack of rebounding helps with the Thunder. No team is perfect. Every team has stuff that they want to improve on and fix and fix. If you listed out every single team's deficiencies, you would have a longer list than 2 bullet points for almost every other team in the NBA. So the blind resume test favors Oklahoma City. The Thunder are going to win this series in 5 and beat the Pelicans. They're the better team. They're better coached. They have the brightest star. They have all the check boxes you have to check off to go win playoff series. How far can they get in the entire NBA? We'll talk about that coming up. But first, I want to say right now, my good friends over at LinkedIn Jobs, folks, whenever you're hiring for your small business, you're going to want to find qualified professionals that is right for your role. So that's why you must check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn Jobs is not just another job board. They are there to help you hire professionals that you cannot find anywhere else. Even though you have people who are not actively searching for jobs, the new opportunity can catch their attention if it's the perfect role, which allows you to match with them at LinkedIn.com. So in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users do not visit other leading job sites because there's no point to look anywhere else than LinkedIn. You're in the wrong place if you're anywhere but LinkedIn. LinkedIn has helped 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that with small businesses, you're wearing so many different hats that you don't have time or the resources to go through this long, drawn-out hiring process. That's why 2.5 small businesses have used LinkedIn Jobs for hiring. Go there right now because they've launched even more tools to help you, including writing job descriptions, making the process easier and quicker. Go right now to linkedin.com/LockedInNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedInNBA. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast and the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. How far can this Thunder squad get? Let's do it. Playoff preview, the entire NBA playoffs. I've got Thunder over New Orleans in 5. We went over this extensively I've got Mavericks over Clippers in 7. Questions about Kawhi. I buy into Luka, Kyrie. Mavericks in 7. I've got Minnesota over Phoenix in a very competitive 6-game series. I've got Denver over the Lakers in 6 games. I think that the Lakers can steal one against Denver, can win one outright in LA, and then fall in 6. I have Boston over the Heat in 5. I don't buy into the Heat culture stuff. I don't buy into this Miami Heat team pulling a rabbit out of their hat. It's also hard to sweep. If there's going to be a sweep in the first round, this would be it. But I'll still give the Heat 1 game. So Boston over the Heat in 5. I have Cavs over Magic in 6. I love this Magic team, but I think that the Cavs, with a healthy Donovan Mitchell, will be able to come back and win this series because they have a little bit more exposure to the postseason with their stars in the sense of Donovan Mitchell, and an area where I think that it'll help is a guy like Jared Allen, who last year admitted like he was not prepared to play under the bright lights of the playoffs. I think that he'll be more equipped for that. And I just think that the Magic have a really solid defense. They have Paolo Banchero. This one could go either way, but I'll just go Cavs in 6. I have Bucks in 7 over Indiana. I have New York in 7 over Philadelphia. Bucks in 7 over Indiana. I think that when the Pacers win, they're really going to win. But in a close game, I'm going to lean Milwaukee, and then there's enough close games to get Milwaukee the edge. For the Sixers game, the Sixers series, Sixers are a fantastic pick, and it's a pick that people are running with. But I love Joel Embiid, rock chalk. I just have to lean with the regular season in this one, and I think that Embiid lasting through another series is going to be difficult because you've seen how exhausted he was in the play-in to even get through the one game. I think that New York's just a more equipped team to win this series. Second round. Real quick in the East. Boston in 4 over Cleveland. Milwaukee in 6 over New York. I think the star power wins out in Milwaukee, and I think that Boston's just the best team in basketball. No offense to Cleveland, but you got to get swept. I would honestly pick a sweep against Miami as well. Now, nonetheless, out west, let's go Denver in 6 over the Timberwolves. I think just like you would expect this series to go, Denver gets the edge for having the best player in the world, and for having Jamal Murray, for having a great coach, for having that kind of edge to them. Minnesota gives it a nice run, but it's tough to pick anyone in the West to beat Jokic. Now this series you've all been waiting for. Thunder Mavericks in round 2. I've got the Thunder. They've got home court advantage in the series. They've got the shot making to keep up with Kyrie and Luka in the form of SGA and Jalen Williams. They've got the quality play finishers to outlast the Mavericks and have more depth than the Mavericks. They have the coaching advantage. And I think that they're just an overall better team than Dallas. Now, it's going to be tough because Luka can go win you a series with anything, but just like he failed against the Clippers, who are very talented, and just like he's failed in another playoff series, like at some point, a team does outweigh those sort of things, even if it's a lot of fun to get to that series loss. This will be a ton of fun to get here. It'll be a 7-game battle with the Clippers. It'll be a 7-game battle with the Thunder, but ultimately, the Thunder are going to win this game in the Paycom Center in Game 7 to go to the Western Conference Finals. That's my official prediction. The Thunder go to the Western Conference Finals against the Denver Nuggets, and the Boston Celtics are in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Milwaukee Bucks. I have the Celtics in 6 over Milwaukee. I love the Celtics team. And I have Denver in 6 over Oklahoma City. Look, I think that Denver steals one in Oklahoma City, and then they take care of business in Denver with the altitude, with the crowd, and with the best player in the world. If they have the best player in the world, they have a competitive roster, and they have a really good coach. Like, I think that that's going to be enough to beat this Thunder team in their initial playoff run. This would be a fantastic end of the season for Oklahoma City. And I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Denver would win this series, but I do think you still win in Oklahoma City. It'll be tough for Oklahoma City to go to Denver and win, even though they had great performances there in the regular season. Regular season and playoffs is not exactly 1-to-1. It is a good measurement, but not exactly 1-to-1. It's a different beast. And by this time, the Thunder will have played in a healthy postseason run. But I still got Denver. Sets up Denver, Boston, NBA Finals, Celtics in 7. That's my prediction for the NBA playoffs. Cannot wait to see how I'm right and wrong, which will mostly be wrong probably. But that's what I'm rocking with. Don't think that this was your only Pelicans preview. It was certainly not. We're still going. 9 pods down, more to come. At midnight tonight, our Locked On Pelicans crossover actually might drop before midnight, but by midnight tonight, we're recording at shooting for 3 o'clock. Depends how Thunder practice goes. Shooting for 3 o'clock record. So shortly after 3, we'll have our crossover with Jake Madison, Locked On Pelicans, getting you set for this series. In the middle of the day on Sunday, keys to the game for game 1. That will be like a kind of bonus content. Well, this has all been bonus content because we've done way more than 5 shows this week. But that will be like a kind of short form. Hey, here's like 10 minutes on the keys to the game for this matchup. So that'll be kind of bonus. Monday, of course, game 1 recap. And by the way, I'll also be hosting Locked On NBA National for the round 1 games on Saturday nights. So a lot of podcasts. We've had a ton already this week, getting you prepped for the playoffs. Here was some storylines to watch for round 1 and what I think will happen throughout the entire postseason. Again, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Thunder anywhere you get your podcast from, including on YouTube, so you never miss an episode, all for free. And all these podcasts with these great guests and the crossover with Jake's going to be great. Jake is one of my favorite hosts on the network, and much, much more to come still. Until tomorrow, be good and be good to one another.